This is me, right? I was in retail. Like when I first started, before this all started, I was in retail, and I was working hard, like to take care of my family. And I'm an introvert, and talking to people all the time, I would leave this job and I would have headaches. And I was like, something's got to change, right? Something's got to change. So what I did was, I was like 19 or something like that. I'm like, I need to get another job. And then I got another job, and I call this corporate chaos, right? Because I was working retail and customer service, I naturally moved over to like this, what do you call it? Like operate customer service, where they just curse you out about everything. Like they like look forward to cursing you out, like these kind of jobs, retail jobs, on the phone. So then I was like, man, I gotta leave this too. And I left there, right? I was doing like, I don't know what to call it, but I left there and then I moved over. I was in school at Pathmark. It basically funded my schooling. And what I did was I went to school for like IT. And I went here, it was customer service, and because I had IT skills, I went here. And I was working for like basically a help desk. It was called a data center. And I picked up a lot of tech skills at that job. And while I was doing this job, I was really good at it. Like anything I do, I take to heart, and I take it very seriously, right? I got a silly side, but I'm serious when it's time to work. So I was doing this job, and I was like busting my behind for this company, and the manager, I'm like sitting this way, so he would be over there. Sometimes he would become insecure. And I'm like, why is this man being so insecure? And I was like, all right, I can't do this anymore. I was the best worker. Like, and I'm not bragging, I was the best worker, and he just become insecure. He would attack me sometimes. So I'm like, what's going on? And then one day, I forget how I discovered this book, but I discovered this book, and the first law is never outshine the master. And I was like, you know what? That's what I've been doing, and that's why he's so insecure. I'm outshining him. I'm so good, and I'm trying to bring him so much value, but I'm not keeping in mind his emotions. And I read this book. This book, 48 Laws of Power, is like, Robert Greene, he like started my journey into like all personal development. If I tell, like I usually don't share that with people because they be like, oh my God, it's an evil book. You shouldn't read that book. But this book changed my life. So that book got me into personal development, and one of the first books that I discovered in the personal development was Rich Dad, Poor Dad. So that, like when you embark on the personal development journey, one of the things you kind of naturally come across is like how to become financially free, wealthy, and stuff like that. And this book kept coming up. And in this book, he's like, invest in real estate. I'm like, all right, how do you do that, right? So just recently, and like earlier this year, I went to a event, and he was there. And you can kind of look, you can't really see it, but I had COVID, and I was sweating, and I just did what I had to do to go to this event and get this picture because he helped change my life. So that's Robert Kiyosaki. That's the book that changed my life. And this is me and Robert Kiyosaki here again. So he kept saying, go get a coach, get into real estate. And I was like, all right, I'm gonna figure it out. And that's kind of what I did, right? So when I did, I was like looking for a mentor. And I'm not gonna say his name because he hates me now, right? He like, sometimes people get jealous of your success. And he's like so envious of my success now. And I'm gonna tell you about why a little bit later, but I picked these pennies or whatever this is intentionally because it took me 2 or 3 years just to save up for that mentor for the $3,000. It took me a long time because I got kids, and I had to pay for my kids. So it took me like 2 years just to save up and to get that mentor. All right, so but that mentor, right, I don't want to say his name, but he did influence me. And one of the things he said was like, go out and network. And that's what I did. I would go out and network, and I would go out and find and build networks, right? And one of like my secret mentor, I just told him this like this week, was Nick Tang. Like he runs real estate events here in Philadelphia, New Jersey. He does some stuff in New York as well. And I would just go to all these events, and I would learn everything that I could learn in person. And he also had a website, so I learned everything that I could from him. And then like you can kind of see here, like his events are huge now, but he had just started his events, and like you can see like an empty seat. Now it's like rare that you'll see an empty seat when he runs events. But I would come to these events, and I would sit there, and I would learn everything, and I would see people helping him. And I'm like, how could I be like help? How could I find a way to add value and help him too? So I would come early, and I would figure out ways to add value, right? A lot of times people say, I don't know how to add value. Number one, you gotta show up. So I would show up, and I would help set up, and I would help break some of the stuff down. And then one day, after a while, he's like, hey, why don't you help out more consistently than I did? And then I got close with all of these guys, and that's how I kind of got into the real estate space, right? There's one more picture. And this is him now. So this was me like 6 years ago, and this is me now. And we like do some events together. I sponsor him. He's one of my close friends. And I'm telling you, I just, I published books. And he didn't know, but I said just this the other day because he posted an event. I said, you were my second mentor without even knowing. He didn't even know, but I was just showing up, adding value to him, adding value to his life. So this is the flop. While I was doing that, what did I do? While I was doing that, I had started helping out like a local real estate investment association. And because I was showing up consistently, I was doing the same thing. Because I was showing up consistently, they was like, Jerome, why don't you come help out with some of the stuff and become what they call a subgroup leader? I was like, sure, I'll be a subgroup leader. And I didn't know what I signed up for. So I was helping out, and I was offering my IT skills to this company now. And then one day, one of the leaders, he said, Jerome, I need you to do some intros. And I like froze. I was like, what the hell? And it was time for me to speak and like introduce myself. And I did. It was like in West Philly, I remember, and I was like so nervous introducing myself that I was up there for like maybe 30 seconds, but I felt like 30 minutes, and I was like sweating like hard, like a lot. And I was sweating so bad, they could all see it. They were like, Jerome, what's wrong? Are you nervous? I was like, no, I'm good. But I was sweating because I was so nervous from having to speak. And I mentioned Nick a little bit earlier. One of the things I learned from him, he was like, do it anyway, scared or not. And I had that in mind when I did this. But I'm telling you, it hurt. Like, I was like sweating, and they were like, you all right? I was like, yeah, I was all right, but they could see that I wasn't all right. I was not okay. All right, so during all these events, I met this guy, Khaled, you might know him, but he would come around and he was like, Jerome, you do some stuff with Nick, I see you around, and would you be interested in like an opportunity? I wasn't licensed yet, and he came and he gave me, it said the best real estate opportunity yet. He was like, look at this company, right? I know IT, I know tech. I was like, okay, let me look at it. And I looked, and it was like, well, duh, that makes the most sense. Like, why would a company do anything else? And he introduced me to EXP. I signed up under Connor. You heard Khaled mention him a little bit earlier, and that's us. This is an event that we did like years ago. So there we have that. Shortly after, I volunteered again, right? Do it anyway. The instructor left. One of the instructors left, and they were like, oh, we need a teacher. And I was like, I'll do it. Then I like ran away, and I really didn't know what I was gonna do, but I stepped up. I was like, I'm gonna do it, right? And a lot of times, like, Jerome, you got skills, and I don't got skills. I'm just willing to put myself out there. It's like the thing. I told you I'm a big introvert, major introvert. And I picked up like a lot of teaching skills when I was doing that. And this is Vina Jones-Cox. She was like, Jerome, you do some stuff. What do you do? And I'm like, I had a wholesale business, and most of my business was coming from Facebook ads. So she asked me to speak on this national event, big platform. And I was like, you know what? I'd be happy to speak, and I'm just gonna tell y'all what I do, because that's easy. Like, I don't have any stories or anything like that, and I did it, and was the #1 speaker. And I was like, there's something here that I can do. I can teach and I can show people how to get business, right? And I'm gonna show y'all how to get rid of those free 99 people, all right? So, after Vina gave me that opportunity, I was featured like all over. This is not even half of where I've been featured and where I speak, but these are just some of my favorite. We got EXP here. I did EXP South Africa somewhere else, and Bragg, we know each other. So these are just some of my past speaking engagements. After I was still on that company, that local REIA, they asked me to join their board, and by being part of their board, I was afforded the opportunity to be part of their high-level mastermind. And I met this guy, right? That first mentor that I was talking about, the one that kind of hates me now, he introduced me to this guy, and this guy is the legend in real estate investing. Like, you can't, like, if you don't know who that is, I don't know why you're in this business. But he's the legend in real estate investing, but he's also really good at marketing. Really good at marketing. And I was like, what's the difference between him and other people? And he's really good at marketing. And he learned from one of my recent mentors, right? So he's really good at marketing, and we are both part of a cohort called the mentor, his name is Dan Kennedy. I learned a lot from Dan Kennedy, and we learned from him. And because I learned from him, right, I built up my authority. I learned how to market. I reached out to Ron LeGrand, and I was like, hey, would you mind writing a foreword for my book? And he said, absolutely. He said yes. And the reason why he said yes, and he committed so easily, was because of the marketing asset that I'm going to tell you about. And most of you should already know what it is. You should have, there are some hints around. This is me really quickly at the EXP shareholders event, and that marketing asset that I'm telling you about, it gave me this opportunity, right? So I spoke and I was doing a lot of this stuff. The only reason I had this opportunity because the marketing things that I was doing, creating a video, doing the social media, the stuff that Khaled is talking about, doing all of that stuff consistently, even when nobody's watching. You got to keep doing it. You got to persist, right? So there's Connor again. That's me and Curtis. Curtis gave me the opportunity to continue to speak and teach at those events. And I got this up here because Kevin Harrington from Shark Tank was on at this event. And it was like, I was proud to be part of that, to share the stage with him and what he taught. I just didn't get my picture, so I'm a little salty about that. But so everything that I learned, I was like, I want to start planning out and trying to show people how they can do the same thing that I did, and like use and come up with that ultimate marketing asset, right? And the reason why I call it the ultimate marketing asset is because it helps you get rid of those tire kickers and everything like that. I started a marketing agency for real estate entrepreneurs. We can help other people, but I wanted to help people in real estate because I was so close to real estate. During the process, I would work, and I try to make it like a 12-step thing where you can do one thing every month. We got it down to 5 most recently. But here's the thing, there was still like an issue. Me trying to show people how to do this, there was still an issue. So, no matter what I showed people, it took them like a long time to implement, right? So I'm like, Jerome, just because you can do something doesn't mean everybody else can do something. And you hear people say, oh, it's all about simplification and stuff like that. And it might sound a little bit corny, but it's true, right? You have to simplify. So I'm like, how can I simplify what I'm doing and showing people and make it better, make it easier? So what was simple and easy for me was frustrating and exhausting for others. The tech and tools were overwhelming, right? Us as professionals, we get overwhelmed by some of these complicated processes. And tech and tools, that's one of those processes that overcomplicates things and frustrates us. Leads were coming in fast for some, but slow for others, despite them all using the same strategies. And that's not really important. So